and thanks for joining us. Holly Shields here for Kalkine TV, welcoming you all to Executive Corner Expert Talks, the show where we bring you industry leaders, successful business owners and market experts all under one roof to help you discover the insights of the stock markets. On today's show, we're joined by Ron Curry, CEO of the Arcade Melbourne, a pioneer co-working space in the game development industry. Welcome to the show, Ron. It's a pleasure meeting with you.
Thank you, Holly. It's great to be here.
Great to have you on. Now, the Arcade is Australia's first non-for-profit collaborative workspace designed for game developers and creatives. What was the inspiration behind creating this space?
Well, late in 2013, there was a large game developer in Melbourne who had a bit of spare space, in effect. And what he realised, and a series of game developers realised, is how important collaboration was as a group. So what they did, and sadly I wasn't part of this when it started, was started to bring in game developers into the property and slowly adding more and more development teams, whether they were very small teams or larger teams. Until it got to the stage in 2017 where they actually outgrew the building and had to move into new premises which were 5 times larger than we started with. So today we've got about 128 residents and I think around 32 companies in the Arcade in Melbourne.
Wow, the scale of that is quite large. It seems like you must have expanded really fast.
Yeah, sorry, I can just hear you here. But certainly was a great it was a great expansion, and it was based on, I guess, the 3 principles, which was, create, collaborate, and cooperate. And as developers in Australia, they don't see each other as competitors. What they actually see is the world is their competitor. So it's much more beneficial for them to work together, to collaborate, to share resources and learnings, and take the product to the world.
Right. So Australian game developers are sort of on the same team, so to say.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Right. And I know the Arcade merged with the IGEA in 2020. How has this merger benefited the clients?
So before the merger, we had 2 associations, essentially. We had IGEA, which is the Interactive Games Entertainment Association, who represented generally large publishers and distributors and platform holders in the market. We had the Game Developers Association that represented independent game developers and small to mid-size development studios. And what we realised over a number of years after working collaboratively together is that we really needed to speak with one voice on behalf of the industry, particularly around our lobbying work and our advocacy work. So the merger has gone incredibly well. We've increased membership. And certainly what we've done is made, I think, a much bigger impact in the policy space and the advocacy space. When we're speaking to Canberra or we're speaking to state and territory governments, we're speaking singularly for a whole industry rather than, different people talking about different parts of the industry.
And now to discuss the digital games tax offset. If you don't know what that is, a 30% digital games tax offset has been announced in this year's budget as an investment incentive. So, Ron, how do you think this will impact our game development industry?
Holly, I think it's going to have a number of ways it's going to impact, and it depends which sector we look at. So if we start with the local sector, what it allows particularly mid-sized studios to do is start investing more heavily in the games that they're producing and increase the people that they're going to employ. Because now they can compete globally. Australia was probably one of the last or the last developed nation to offer this sort of incentive for game developers. They've offered it for film and television and foreign film in the past, but never for game developers. So we've been competing with the US and Canada and across Europe pretty much on an uneven playing field. So now what we've got is for local developers a level playing field for them. It also gives an incentive and some comfort to investors. So these companies who are looking for offshore investors and VCs, it's now saying to them, the government has confidence in this industry, you can have confidence in the industry as well. So we're really happy about what it's doing for local studios to allow them to grow and increase and employ more people. As importantly, is the government's reason for doing this is about business attraction. So they're saying to global AAA studios and large developers, Australia is now open for business. Have a look at us and consider opening up here. And just by a little way of example, we've got around 1,200 game developers in Australia at the moment, 1,500. Canada has 27,000. So what we're saying is Australia should be punching way higher than we're punching globally at the moment. For every $100 invested in games in the world, Australia gets just under 5 cents. And to us, that's just not good enough. So what we're saying, we can increase employment, economic output, and exports exponentially in a very short period of time now that we've got the DGTO, the Digital Games Tax Offset. It doesn't come into effect till July 1, 2022, but to us that's great. It gives us time to get ready and talk to government and ensure that the program itself and how it unpacks works for the government, works for the economy, and works for the development studios.
Right. When you put it that way, especially 5 cents to I think $100 it was, it's just staggering, that difference.
Yeah, it certainly is. And, we know Australians produce fantastic games. We're really talented. We're so good that they're poaching us. All of the key talent from Australia has moved offshore. And it's hard to attract them back when there really isn't a vibrant, large industry here. Because if a single studio invites you back to work, which is fabulous, what are your options if you don't like it? What are your options if you want to try a new project? There's just nowhere else to go. So it's safer to stay overseas. So what we're looking at now is this really full ecosystem where we'll have large development studios, medium-sized development studios, people getting trained, the ability to bring expats back to Australia because we know they want to come here, and train the next generation of these really highly skilled creators. And what we've got to remember that these skills aren't just being used for games. These skills are being used for education, they're being used for health outputs, they're being used for industry. People like Deloitte are snapping up game developers. Our competition for talent comes from banks and defence and education and the government. So there's really transferable skills coming from our industry.
Right. It actually seems like there's a strong crossover between games development and other tech development as well.
We certainly are. We're a high-tech / creative industry. And if you look at things like VR, it started with games. AR started with games. We've driven a lot of technology on the back of entertainment, but we shouldn't forget where it came from. But we've got a lot of really clever, talented engineers, story writers, musicians, producers, game designers. The list of the skills that go into making a game are incredible.
Right. So you're hopeful that in light of the new digital games tax offset, Australia will be able to recover from the brain drain, essentially, that's happened with our game development industry and be competitive in the international stage.
We certainly are. And, the Prime Minister set up a task force for business attraction and he called out at the budget, game development was one of the industries where they saw real potential to bring back the brain drain, attract businesses, and have a really solid export business. And we're quite excited about it. It's to us, it's not just a game. It's a huge economic driver. And we don't have to dig it up. We don't have to ship it. It's a great export. It's weightless.
Definitely. And on that note, do you see anything in particular in the game development industry for Australia in the near future?
Just a lot of potential and being able to see the cream rise to the top. Seeing now that the talent can all come together, it can work together and really show, what a great country this is, in aggregate, not just, little stars here and there who have moved out of Australia, but how solid the industry here is. And that's the really exciting thing when you start to attract not just local talent, but then, overseas talent starts to look at Australia and go, we really want to be part of that. It's an incredibly exciting place to be.
Definitely. That'll definitely seem like we've turned a new leaf, I think, for our industry.
That's certainly our hope.
Yeah. So how about for the Arcade Melbourne? Are there any new developments on the horizon?
Look, there's always new opportunities we're looking at the arcade. We're lucky to be in Melbourne, where there's Melbourne International Game Week, which always presents some great opportunities for us to highlight the arcade, to attract new residents. We're always looking for adjacent businesses who can just lift the type of businesses and the type of people who come through the arcade. This year we've got a lot of focus on education, so we're getting some educational facilities who are basing their students at least part-time in our offices, so they can be immersed in what it really is like to work in game development and get hands-on skills. So it's not just theory, it's real practical working with developers day in and day out. So to us that's pretty exciting, so the future of the industry.
Absolutely, those skills are invaluable, I think, for the next generation.
Yeah, they are, and hopefully they'll learn them at the arcade, along with their their uni tutors. But we hope we can take that theory and really let them put it into practice, and grow their own businesses, and grow their own skills.
Right. Well, on that note, it is just about time to wrap up. But might I say, Ron, your insights have been invaluable. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Holly. Bye-bye.
And thanks for your time, viewers, as well. Remember to stay tuned for more live updates, and as we say here, stay apprised and invest wise with Kalkine.